Yes, we are live. Okay, this will be our last return of experience with Sirius today. And for that, we welcome three people from IRI: DAVID Friedland, Claudia Irvine, and PURNHAGEN. They will present the Voracity platform, data management platform, and how Voracity uses Sirius in its Workbench IDE. So thanks to be here with us, and the floor is yours.
Okay. Yeah, well, thank you for the introduction. We're happy to be here. Again, I'm David Friedland. This is Claudia. It's Don, maintaining our social distance, and ready to take you through our presentation. So you should have the first slide up. This is our session on IRI Workbench, which is our graphical environment for data management that's built on Eclipse with Sirius. And you're still seeing the next slide. It's not advancing, I'm not sure why. Can we see the second slide about our company?
Yes, we can.
Okay, very good. Yep, thank you. So just some background. We're 42 years old this year. We're best known around the world for a data transformation utility called CoSort, which has given rise to several spin-off products, as well as a very large ecosystem platform called Voracity. And everything that we're doing now around data transformation with CoSort and the spin-off products, which also do data munging, a bit of data mining, data masking, data movement and migration. These are all front-ended in IRI Workbench, as you'll see. And you can see on the left just a handful of the kinds of customers that we have around the world in different industries. Of course, these are the large names. We have many small and medium-sized businesses that license our software as well. Most of them have two things in common, or at least one, which is big data, where they need to move that data more quickly and manipulate it efficiently, or they have sensitive data, perhaps subject to GDPR regulations that require its discovery and de-identification. So lately, we've been doing kind of both, the fast data movement ahead of analytics and the data-centric security people need for compliance and test environments. Those are the two biggest activities that our users are engaging us for, among many others. So here is a look at the product line. As I mentioned, CoSort top left, this was our first foray into the market 42 years ago, which gave rise to pretty much everything you see around it, including that Voracity umbrella platform in the middle, which includes all the products and services that I mentioned. And you can see the capabilities inside that platform Voracity encompass all of the functionality of the data management and the data protection products that I showed on the previous screen. So again, it's about the movement and manipulation of data through its life cycle, independent of the sources and targets that you have, which pretty much cover most of what the world is working on now. And so they're looking for us to provide a platform that can give them a cost-effective and fast way to perform and speed and consolidate all these mission-critical operations in their data center. So that's what Voracity is supposed to do with one or more of the sub-products that are part of it. Okay, so we offer those standalone. We also offer the whole platform product for people who want to do lots of different things. But we're here today to talk about our relationship with OBO and what we've done with Sirius, and Claudia will be demonstrating the pieces of Voracity that are developed with Sirius technology in our Workbench front end. So this is the Eclipse environment that is supporting all the activities in Voracity and all the activities of all the IRI subproducts too. Okay, so you'll see that this environment again supports all the capabilities for data integration, data discovery, data migration, governance, and analytics that we do, and a lot of this is graphically represented in jobs that are diagrammed in Sirius. Jobs like these ER diagrams that help during the data discovery and profiling phase, And then once jobs are built, they're expressed in workflow diagrams, as you're familiar with, thanks to Sirius, that Claudia will describe, and then drilling down into these various tasks, which our language actually performs in our runtime environment. You see represented through these mapping diagrams, which express the same parameters which are in our job script. So Claudia will take you through all that, and we're here to answer whatever questions you have about the nature of our integration with Sirius, as well as the capabilities and Voracity and all the IRI products. So thank you for your attention.
Okay, let me just switch screens here. So we actually have two different VSMs that we use for through Sirius, and the smaller of the two is our ER diagrams. As David explained, these are particularly helpful for some of our wizards where we are actually using the formal restraints in the databases. You can see on the left-hand side, we have a project explorer and a data source explorer, and we actually use the JDBC code to create these ER diagrams and can read the foreign keys, required ones, using our conditional lines or edges in Sirius. We can see we have solid lines for the required foreign keys and dashed lines for nullable foreign keys. So this is particularly helpful for a quick glance, especially for things like our subsetting wizard, to kind of plan your job ahead of time. I'm going to make the screen a little bigger for the next screen. Our other one is our flow diagrams. This is our big project as far as what we use Sirius for. We use these quite extensively in our wizards. Our wizards create scripts that our backend uses. The other thing that the wizard creates is batch files, because potentially some of our wizards create quite a number of scripts during the job. So an easy way to make sure that certain things are run in order is we create batch files as well. And because batch files are so interesting to read, for instance, this diagram represents this batch file here, it is quite nice to be able to diagram these workflows so that they're easy to see what's going on, what step comes before what. This particular one is a project that takes incremental changes and loads them into a production database based on the last time that this was run. So it compares it to a updated column. And we also have some blocks that tell it to set variables. You can see we use the property screen down at the bottom. So this particular one is setting an environment variable. These would be our transform mapping blocks. I will show you those in a second in more detail. We have decision blocks and command line blocks, copy blocks, pretty much anything that you would need. If not, we do have generic command line blocks, which is this, for instance, the set block that I showed first. These are, like I said, can be edited or represent a batch files, so you can edit them here and manipulate them and run them at the end. This transform mapping block here, to give you an example, we use bordered nodes. On the left-hand side is our inputs. On the right-hand side is our outputs. This particular one has a database as an input file and a flat file as an output file. So these diagrams really allow us to do a quick glance at what is going on. Now, if we want to see more detail, we can go into the transform mapping blocks themselves. However, let me show you one that is a little more complicated, I guess, in the transform mapping blocks. This particular flow diagram takes a call detail record log and checks it for errors. So we have some blocks that are creating lookup sets to compare the results to beforehand. It has some wait blocks that we use to wait, put a time delay in to make sure those set files are actually created first before we move on to the next step. And it goes into actually reading the inputs here in this first sort block. I can double click this and look at the actual manipulations that are going on in that diagram. Sorry. So I have an input block, an action, and an output. I can see the details by using the properties view down below. This particular one has 3 CSV input files. It lists out all of my fields and a file tape, because we do provide services for all sorts of different file types. CSV, flat, even fixed, unstructured data as well. So again, a quick glance kind of tells you what file type we've got. In the sort block, I can see my keys very easily. And then as we move to output, this particular one has 2 different files that it is sending the output to. And it is based on this omit statement. And depending on if it has an error, depends on which file it goes to. The other thing that is probably noticeable is these lines from the fields, which are blue to indicate that the data is passed directly from the input into output as is. The orange lines indicate a derived field. For instance, this particular one, if I click on it and look at my properties view, I can see that it's actually a substring of the original field calling number. So I can quickly and easily see, based on these diagrams, what is going on and what is being manipulated pretty quickly. This actually represents a script. This is our own domain-specific language. As you can see, here is where it's my fields are being transformed. However, it's not as easy to view that something is changing there as it is in the diagram. So it's one of the things that we really like, that can be seen easily, quickly, and you can manipulate them. The other thing too that I can do in our diagrams is, if I double click on, say, a field, I can instantly go into the editing dialog. And here you can see where I have that substring transform happening, and I can just make changes here, and they will be reflected back in the diagram easily. This screen, we have some things being manipulated by dialogues, because this is a lot of things to put in a properties view. So we just have, especially for our fields, kind of a summary screen, I guess you could say. However, we do use the properties view in 2 different ways in our transform mapping blocks. If you look down at the bottom, we do use the Sirius properties view, as now included in the ODesign files. We are grateful, however, that Sirius continued to use and support the EEF properties views, because, for instance, this particular one we had already made many years ago, before Sirius started supporting properties views. And as you can see, there's a lot of stuff in here. So to be able to continue to use some of our screens that were made by EEF has been very helpful. We are slowly migrating some of the screens over to the Sirius ones, but some of the ones haven't changed yet. So that's been helpful. The other thing that we have implemented recently is, if we go back to the telecom, this execute button that on the tab bar we have implemented, and it is very helpful because one of the things that this does is we have any changes that are made here will have to be reflected back into these scripts that are created by these diagrams. So if it's very easy to manipulate these diagrams and then simply click this execute button. What this does is it goes in and serializes. Oh, sorry, I need to click the background. I need to click the background so it does the whole batch file. So when we click this, it is going to confirm that I am on a Windows machine for me. And it is going to go and serialize all of these components for me. And I'll show you that here. You can see on the right, or on the left, I mean, the telecom folder is being populated with both the scripts that were created as the diagram was serialized and is actually running the batch file. So it is kind of nice to be able to utilize that component of Sirius.
Okay. One thing that we didn't address, the part about the Windows machine, we also support running on Linux and the Mac, basically anywhere Eclipse and Sirius will run. If you're on a Linux system, for example, we would create shell scripts instead of a batch script. Some of these diagrams, especially the ER diagram, which was the first one that Claudia showed you, were developed with professional services from OBO. We contracted with OBO and had one of their engineers work closely with us on designing these, and it was a real help to get over the learning curve with the Sirius technology, to actually have somebody that is on the development team that was intimately familiar with the technology to help us kind of jumpstart our project. So that's always an option for any company that is struggling to get started with this. You can contact OBO and take advantage of their professional services.
Yeah, one thing I forgot to mention is our palette. So as we add things into our software, we can pretty easily, now that the O design is set up and kind of designed like we want, it's pretty easy to add these different blocks into our palette here. Some of them are simple, like the change directory. I've got a path. That's pretty much it on my decisions to make. And then we have other ones that are a lot more complicated that will allow you to actually run through wizards. So they'll prompt you into a wizard, and I can make this block based on the results of a wizard. So we can make things as simple and as complicated as need be to keep people inside of continuing to use the diagrams. We do have some wizards that are extremely complicated as far as the mechanics in the background. So we have them separate at the top of our palette or our workbench. However, the output, 9 times out of 10, the output of those wizards is the flow diagram. So people can manipulate the results pretty easily here. Oh, I forgot to add this, or I want to add a secondary output. They can easily manipulate the output on that. For instance, on the left-hand side is an output of one of our wizards. And it just takes and masks fields in 3 different tables after it disables the foreign keys and loads them into or updates the data in the same tables, and then re-enables the foreign keys. So we use the diagrams in two ways, kind of as both a design tool for more complicated jobs that require a lot of steps, but we also use it as output for some of our wizards to be able to edit and tweak afterwards.
Yeah, another thing that we didn't mention, that domain-specific language that's behind these transform mapping diagrams, and that these transform mapping diagrams are serialized into. This was developed with Xtext, similar to one of the previous presenters that I apologize, I don't remember which one, that is, used Xtext as well to develop their domain-specific language. So that's how we get the color-coded syntax editor. And then we just include those Xtext models as models within our flow diagram that's in the transform mapping diagrams that are then displayed in the Sirius framework. So there's a really good integration between using Xtext models, bringing in other models, and combining them into a display, into a diagram. So thought I'd mention that.
That integration, I should mention, is a hugely important commercial advantage that we have been able to bring into the market in these last 5 years that we started working with OBO, because this type of view gives people what they are expecting kind of in the data warehouse environment, for example, and in data marts. Other ETL tools have these types of mappings. We find this to be better, newer, more flexible, and as Don and Claudia indicated, tightly integrated with the metadata models that we have going on in the background in Eclipse. So it's a wonderful way to bring everything together and to give people the kind of visual display of their jobs that they need at development time, debugging time, and also when it comes to auditing. These diagrams can be saved as pictures and exported and shared with people. So it's just it's a terrific facility.
I don't have anything to do.
No.
We're getting towards the end here, ready to take some questions. You might want to go out to the main.
Yeah, we're gonna switch back to that.
Okay, thanks for the presentation. We have one question now, but I'm sure that a few ones will come. The question is, why do you use a dedicated diagram, Sirius diagram, instead of a tool that supports the UML standard?
I'm not sure I understood that.
Can you repeat that? Sorry.
You can see the question.
Well, why have you decided to use Sirius instead of a UML existing tool?
Why do we use Sirius instead of?
Well, a UML tool.
A different tool.
Versus a different tool?
I didn't think it, you did.
I think Don did.
I'm just asking. Well, maybe we can switch to the next question.
Yeah, well, the ER diagrams just kind of came out of our existing use of Sirius, and the fact that we wanted something, that we could just model multiple different database schemas in, and it just seemed like it was easily done in Sirius, and that seemed rather than adding yet another technology or another framework to our stack, we preferred to use an existing framework. This keeps our entire application smaller, less dependencies. We already have enough problems in dependency management within Eclipse, which is less than ideal. I think anybody that's developed for Eclipse would probably agree with that. So therefore, the less frameworks that we have to rely on. We did an integration with KNIME, and we still can't use the latest version of Eclipse or Sirius because KNIME has so many dependencies on older packages. So by minimizing our dependencies on additional framework components, it makes it much easier to manage our own configurations.
And we do need a vendor who's reliable enough to keep up with the changes in Eclipse so we can stay as current as possible with.
Yes, we like to stay on the most recent version of Eclipse and Sirius that we can, because they, a lot of things have been improved, fixed, and we need those fixes.
Okay, thanks. Are the edges to list items a standard Sirius functionality?
Edges.
Oh, my connectors.
Probably, I don't know. I don't understand that question either. Are these edges?
Okay, you can. I think you can access to the questions on bottom of the screen. There is the question, the list of questions, so you can have a look.
Are these edges to list items standard?
Yes, yes. So
okay.
We use conditional edges. So we actually have a class that we can read from directly from executing some Sirius services, basically is what it's called. And we can actually write code to return which condition that those lines represent. The orange and the blue lines, as well as in the ERI diagram, whether it's a solid line or an edge. So yes, that's in the Sirius functionality as conditional items.
Okay, thanks. Next section maybe it's just a precision regarding the first one. So we'll skip it for now. Do you work with NoSQL databases such as MongoDB?
We do. We support MongoDB in several different ways, both as a structured source of data as well as semi and unstructured sources of data within their collections. We're also compatible with Cassandra, and we've done work with Elasticsearch as well, all sort of with the underlying JSON format so that we can map the data, but principally to discover and to mask it automatically in the collections where the data are proprietary, sensitive and subject to GDPR and so on. So yeah, we have had to work with NoSQL as well as relational databases.
Okay, thanks.
Do you work with them?
Okay, I think we have a question in the chat. Do you work actually with healthcare?
With PLSQL, you said?
No, are you working with the healthcare domain?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And to just kind of address the ongoing conversation in the chat window there about the standards, ER diagrams, they're developed. There are many tools that make ER diagrams, and there's many different standards as far as what iconography to use. And I think we follow a lot of the examples of other companies and how they're doing their ER diagrams, and yet we do it in a way that can be vendor agnostic as far as, it'll diagram an Oracle database or a MySQL or Postgres. We just, basically use the model provided by the DTP layer in Eclipse, and we convert that into a graphical representation. So we weren't trying to create our own standard or ignore UML or other standards, but if you look at all the ER diagramming tools, there are variations in how they represent different constructs within a database.
And I will say we have a feature request in for Sirius to change the way the arrowheads work for ER diagrams. Okay,
we'll have a look at that. Okay, so we unfortunately are just in time now. I will prepare the closing session. You will have a few minutes to continue to discuss with the attendee and answer other questions if any. So once again, thanks for your time and for your presentation.
Thank you.
All right, thanks for having us.
Yep, you're welcome. Have a good day.
Chaplain go there. Well, there's a time delay. So we were actually not live.
Oh.
There's about a 30-second lag. It was really kind of difficult for me.
It's my PowerPointer, especially Claudia.
Yeah,
She was talking about things that haven't been seen yet.
Well, no, she wasn't. Nobody had heard her. Everything